Over time, like flakes of gold hidden by the sediment of a moving stream, small scraps of the past become stored in the dustbins of history. But once rediscovered, they become the little-known nuggets of the past that remind us of who we are and how we got here, and that we too will someday be a contributor to the past. Join us now as we select a story from history's dustbin.
During his heyday, comedian satirist Pat Paulsen ran a presidential campaign every 4 years, from 1968 to 1996. Like comedian Gracie Allen, who 28 years earlier, in 1940, ran her own tongue-in-cheek presidential campaign in the midst of the Roosevelt versus Wilkie race, Paulsen was incredibly gifted with a wonderful sense of comedic and political timing. In 1940, America was fighting a battle against economic depression and a looming war in Europe. In 1968, the country was facing extreme law and order issues, and many cities were torn apart by riots and crime. In 1940, in stepped Gracie Allen, the scatterbrained half of the Burns and Allen comedy team. And when George saw billboards going up all over town with "Vote for Gracie" on them, he confronted his wife, who said, "I meant to tell you, I'm running for president." And that's when George, after flicking ash from his ever-present cigar, asked, "How long has that been going on?" To which Gracie replied, "Oh, George, I thought you knew. It's been going on for almost 200 years now." It all started when George Washington... Burns and Allen had fun with Gracie's candidacy by broadcasting from a new location each week. They even had a mock convention. In fact, Harvard University even got into the act by endorsing Gracie. And when the election was over, Roosevelt had defeated Wilkie, but about 42,000 people had written in Gracie's name. In 1968, in stepped Pat Paulsen, whose campaign slogan touted him as just a common, ordinary, simple savior of America's destiny. The real candidates that year were Richard M. Nixon, Hubert H. Humphrey, and George Wallace. And on campaign issues, regardless of the questions, Paulsen's answer was his own brand of political doublespeak, never varying much from something like, "I feel it is too directly bound to its own anguish to be anything other than a cry of negation, carrying within itself the seeds of its own destruction. However, to get to the meat of the matter, I will come right to the point, and take note of the fact that the heart of the issue in the final analysis escapes me." On the campaign trail, either as a Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour performer, or as the guest entertainer at a Tupperware convention, if the questions got too specific, or the challenges to his long-winded nonsense responses were too difficult to field, he invariably brought down the house with a catchphrase that took America by storm. Picky, picky, picky. Paulsen found his name written onto the ballot during the election primaries a number of times, and like Gracie, he won some votes. In 1992, in the North Dakota Republican primary, he came in second to George H.W. Bush. And that same year, during the Republican primaries, he received a total of 10,984 votes. 4 years later, in 1996, during the Democratic primary in New Hampshire, he received 921 votes, which was enough to give him second place behind incumbent Bill Clinton, and ahead of the legitimate political challenger, Buffalo Mayor James D. Griffin. Paulsen was the master of deadpan delivery, and he always responded to questions as if they were of critical importance to his campaign. On America's problems, all of the problems we face in the United States today can be traced to an unenlightened immigration policy on the part of the American Indian. On censorship, for example, we're allowed to say that Ronald Reagan is a lousy actor, but we're not allowed to say that he's a lousy governor, which is ridiculous. We all know he's a good actor. On political extremes, assuming either the left wing or the right wing gained control of the country, it would probably fly around in circles. I'm neither left wing nor right wing. I'm middle of the bird. On gun control, when asked if he believed in the right to bear arms, "No, I believe in the right to arm bears." On political parties, I will not claim that I will solve all the world's problems by myself. If I did, I'd have to run as a Republican or a Democrat. My fellow Americans, let us not forget that although Pat Paulsen has been gone from our midst for far too long, his wisdom, his insightful leadership, and his astute lucidity into the nature of America's problems, coupled with the uncanny ability to understand long-range solutions to short-term predicaments, and the need to reverse the policy prevalent among politicians and thus ameliorate the hurdles of divisive government, are still meaningful to all of us who once believed so fervently in his candidacy. That it is important, nay, vital that we remember that as centuries go by, time will pass.